There's a kind of silence that doesn't comfort, the one that waits. It's not peace. It's the breath before everything begins to move again. The city holds it like a secret, an invisible inhale before the noise returns to claim the night. You can almost hear it. The tension between lampposts and empty windows, between what's been said and what's still waiting in the dark. The streets are bare, slick with the residue of last night's rain. Neon signs flicker in slow exhaustion, glowing for no one. Somewhere, a screen hums faintly, an unattended heartbeat in a world that refuses to fully rest. This stillness isn't quiet, it's charged. It's the moment right before consciousness awakens, when the city feels alive precisely because it's pretending to be dead. You stand there, in that breathless pause, realizing that silence in a city isn't absence. It's pressure. It's the sound of everything that hasn't yet been spoken. And in that moment, between pulse and paralysis, between the hum of a distant streetlight and the whisper of your own thoughts, you feel it, the static before the neon. When the silence finally breaks, it doesn't explode, it hums. A low vibration rising from the underground, from the unseen veins of the city. Beneath the asphalt, beneath the steel and concrete, something begins to move. Slow, rhythmic, mechanical, yet strangely human. It's not a sound, it's a pulse. The heartbeat of a living organism built from cables, engines, and dreams that never fully sleep. You feel it through your shoes, through the soles of your mind, the trains sliding like electric blood through tunnels, the generators breathing, the collective exhale of millions waking at once. Every traffic light blinks like a heartbeat. Every engine coughs like a thought forming itself in the dark. Cities don't wake the way humans do. They remember they were never asleep. The pulse beneath the asphalt is the memory of movement, the echo of yesterday's footsteps trying to find new meaning today. And maybe that's what keeps us here. The illusion that we belong to something alive, that in its rhythm we can hide from our own stillness. Because when the city breathes, we mistake it for our own breath. When it pulses, we convince ourselves we're still moving forward. The night never really ends here. It just changes temperature. The darkness isn't absence, it's texture. Every surface reflects light from somewhere. An old screen, a billboard selling a life no one actually lives, a window glowing with someone else's insomnia. In this city, brightness doesn't mean clarity. It means exposure. The streets are washed in colors too artificial to be beautiful, yet too human to be ignored. Red, blue, amber, emotions translated into electricity. The lights keep burning not because anyone needs them, but because stopping would feel like death. The city survives by pretending to be awake. You walk through it, your shadow fragmented into pieces by passing headlights. Everything shines, and yet nothing is illuminated. You begin to wonder if the lights are trying to keep something hidden, the exhaustion beneath the glow, the loneliness that hums between flickers. There's a beauty in this constant wakefulness, a strange poetry in how the city fights the dark like a child afraid to dream. But beauty here is also a trap, a hypnotic promise that if you keep moving, maybe you'll find what everyone else is chasing. And so the lights never fade. They just keep burning, not to guide you home, but to make sure you never stop looking for it. Listen long enough, and the city begins to think for you. The noise isn't random. It's orchestral, like a subconscious whisper conducted by chaos. Horns blare not out of anger, but out of rhythm. Footsteps collide in syncopation. Distant voices blend into something that feels like thought, collective, restless, unfinished. Every sound becomes a fragment of language, the hiss of buses breathing like tired lungs, the mechanical heartbeat of crosswalks blinking their coded prayers, the laughter that echoes down alleyways like static from an old radio. It's overwhelming, but also strangely intimate. The city's thoughts are our own, amplified. You start to notice how easily the noise fills the spaces where your mind should be. It tells you what to want, when to move, what to feel. In this orchestra of motion, silence feels like disobedience. To stop is to fall out of sync. To listen deeply is to risk hearing something you're not supposed to. The emptiness underneath the melody. Somewhere between a siren and a sigh, you realize the city's noise isn't just sound. It's memory, anxiety, desire, all colliding at once, producing an illusion of meaning, a kind of thinking that doesn't require a thinker. And maybe that's the most human thing about it. That even in the noise, the city is still trying to understand itself. The morning arrives, but not the way nature intended. It doesn't rise. It flickers. Streetlights fade reluctantly as the sky turns the color of an old screen, pale and electric. The sun isn't what wakes the city. It's the hum of machines rebooting for another cycle. Elevators, trains, servers, a synchronized resurrection of systems pretending to be life. You watch as daylight leaks from fluorescent bulbs and LED signs as people step into the streets already illuminated by artificial warmth. There's no golden hour here, only cold precision. The glow feels clinical, like hope sterilized and sold back to us through glass. The city no longer waits for the sun. It manufactures its own morning, pixel by pixel. Windows light up in sequence. Screens ignite like tiny stars, and the illusion of beginning again takes hold. But underneath that sterile brightness lies fatigue, a quiet rebellion of bodies forced to believe in renewal. In this synthetic dawn, everything looks awake, yet nothing feels alive. You begin to understand that the light itself is a lie, not to deceive you, but to protect you from seeing how exhausted everything truly is. And as you stand there, under the white hum of the new day, a single thought lingers. Maybe the sun has stopped rising because we no longer deserve it. Somewhere between the static and the silence, the signal fractures. You can hear it, faint, irregular, like a ghost whispering through interference. These are the lost frequencies of the human mind, the half-thoughts, the unfinished prayers, the things we meant to say but buried beneath notifications and noise. The city hums on every wavelength, but not all of them are human. The air carries invisible conversations, routers, machines, hearts trying to sync with something real. Every vibration seems to say, "I'm still here," yet no one truly listens. We've learned to live inside dissonance, mistaking distortion for connection. You walk through a crowd and everyone's speaking, but not to each other. Their voices are tuned to private channels, playlists, messages, feeds. Every frequency becomes a wall, a digital whisper looped endlessly within itself. And beneath it all, that faint static keeps calling, not to remind you of what's around you, but of what's missing. You realize these frequencies aren't lost. We are. The signal never vanished. We just stopped knowing how to receive it. We traded resonance for reach, silence for signal strength. And maybe the saddest truth is this: what once connected us now isolates us perfectly. You see your reflection, but it doesn't blink when you do. For a moment, you're not sure which version of you is real, the one behind the screen or the one trapped inside it. The city multiplies you. Every profile, every post, every curated smile, another ghost layered over your name. You've become an echo of yourself, polished, fragmented, optimized for visibility, but emptied of weight. The screen doesn't lie. It only forgets what truth used to look like. You scroll through faces that look like yours, voices that sound like yours, and wonder when individuality turned into replication. The glitch isn't in the code, it's in the soul. We've outsourced our essence to algorithms that remember us better than we do. Some nights you catch your reflection in the glass of a subway door, pixelated by the city's passing lights. There you are, a collage of data points pretending to be consciousness. The boundaries blur, human, digital, fictional. The image stutters, And for a heartbeat, you disappear, replaced by a smoother version. Maybe that's what identity means now. Not to exist, but to update. Not to be seen, but to perform. We no longer ask who we are, only who's watching. And in the brief static between signals, you realize something terrifying. The glitch might not be the error. It might be the only trace of what's still real. Every city is built on mirrors. Towering walls of glass reflecting themselves endlessly. Beauty turned inward, chasing its own illusion. You stand before a window, but instead of seeing the world, you see yourself framed by it, multiplied until meaning dissolves. The reflection feels alive, but it's hollow, a perfect surface concealing nothing at all. The storefronts shimmer like promises. Behind them, mannequins smile without eyes, waiting for us to mistake them for people. Every polished window is a stage. Every passerby an actor in a play no one remembers auditioning for. The lights bounce, the faces blur, and somewhere between reflection and reality, identity erodes. You catch your own image again, walking, moving, existing. And it feels almost comforting, like proof that you're still here. But deep down, you know it's just another projection, a well-lit ghost performing presence in a world obsessed with surfaces. The glass doesn't hide the emptiness. It glorifies it. It teaches us to find comfort in distortion, to fall in love with our own absence. And maybe that's why we keep looking, not to see, but to confirm that the void is still watching back. They move together, but not toward each other. 1,000 footsteps in perfect synchronization, yet no one collides, not because they're aware, but because they've mastered the art of avoidance. The city breathes through them, not with them. Faces pass like ghosts behind glass, illuminated for seconds by the same light, then gone. The subway doors open, and people spill out like data, efficient, anonymous, never touching. Conversations dissolve into air before meaning can form. You realize that here, proximity doesn't equal connection. The crowd isn't company, it's camouflage. The more bodies around you, the easier it is to disappear. You look around and notice how everyone carries a portal in their hands, glowing, demanding, whispering another reality where they might finally be seen. We've never been more connected, and yet the silence between us has never been louder. In the reflection of the train window, 1,000 eyes stare forward, unblinking. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding themselves. And as the train slides through the tunnel, you feel it. The strange intimacy of loneliness shared by millions, all together in motion, all alone in meaning. Desire used to be human, unpredictable, raw, born from touch and chance. Now it's measured, predicted, monetized. The city doesn't sell products anymore. It sells you back to yourself, repackaged, optimized, tailored to your hunger. Every billboard, every screen knows your pulse better than you do. You scroll, not because you're curious, but because something inside you craves permission to stop. But the feed never ends. It's a mirror that reflects only your wanting. The algorithm has learned your weaknesses, loneliness, envy, nostalgia, and feeds them like pets that never die. It doesn't need to manipulate you. It just waits. You click, you buy, you return. This isn't temptation. It's architecture. A digital cathedral where faith has been replaced by feedback loops. We don't pray anymore. We refresh. And in that endless refresh, something sacred decays. The thrill of not knowing what we want. Desire has become predictable, and that's the tragedy. When everything you long for is calculated, longing itself loses meaning. You're no longer choosing. You're being chosen by the data you left behind. And maybe that's what the city really sells. Not satisfaction, but the illusion that we can still feel it. There was a time when memories lived in the warmth of touch, in photographs yellowed by years, in the smell of paper and dust. Now they live in clouds, encrypted and weightless. Our dreams are saved as data, floating in invisible servers, perfect but cold. Nothing fades anymore. It just updates. You open an old folder, digital ghosts of moments you swore you'd never forget. Faces smile through pixelation, laughter suspended in low resolution. The emotion is there, but distant, like hearing your own voice through an old tape. Nostalgia has become a screen we look through, not a place we return to. Technology promised preservation, but what it really gave us was repetition. We don't relive, we replay. The colors never change, the light never shifts, and so the memory never grows. It stays trapped in the exact moment we abandoned it, looping endlessly in perfect stillness. Somewhere between the code and the static, you realize digital immortality is just another form of decay. The pixels hold the image, but not the warmth. They remember the face, but not the soul. And as you stare at those glowing fragments of yesterday, one truth hums softly in the background. Maybe forgetting was the only way we ever truly remembered. In a city made of noise and light, faith hides in small, invisible gestures. Not in temples or altars, but in the quiet persistence of those who still look up, even when there's nothing sacred left to see. Every act of kindness here is a kind of prayer. The stranger who holds the elevator door, the old woman feeding pigeons at dawn, the man who plants a tree in a place that's forgotten how to breathe. Concrete doesn't echo, but it listens. It absorbs every confession whispered into its walls, the arguments, the apologies, the tired sighs that never reach the sky. You begin to realize that belief doesn't die in cities, it mutates. Hope wears new disguises. Sometimes it looks like resistance, sometimes just survival. You pass under an overpass tagged with words that almost sound holy. Keep going. Beneath that graffiti sermon, life continues. Trains rattle, hearts race, people pray without words. The sacred isn't gone. It's been repurposed, recoded into the fabric of motion and exhaustion. Faith here isn't loud. It's quiet, almost invisible, but it's there. Pulsing beneath the asphalt, stitched between breaths. A prayer not to be saved, but simply to endure. There's a moment when the city forgets itself, between night and morning, when time feels weightless. The streets are neither alive nor dead, just suspended in a strange, fragile calm. It's the invisible hour, the space between exhaustion and rebirth, where only the sleepless and the searching remain. You can feel it in the air, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort, but confesses. Streetlights flicker like tired thoughts, and the wind carries the faint hum of a world caught mid-breath. In this liminal time, everything loses its name. Buildings become silhouettes, cars become whispers, and people become outlines of memory. It's here that truth feels closest, not because it's louder, but because everything else finally shuts up. You realize how much of life happens between seconds, between the things we say and the things we mean. The city isn't sleeping, it's dreaming, and you've accidentally wandered into its subconscious. This hour doesn't last, it never does. But for a fleeting heartbeat, you see it, the raw pulse beneath everything, unfiltered and real. And when the first train groans awake, breaking the spell, you understand. Silence is the only part of the city that still feels honest. Above the streets, faces stare down, larger than life, brighter than memory. Their smiles don't fade, their eyes don't blink. They sell perfection from 1,000 angles, looping endlessly in digital resurrection. These are the new saints of the city, made not of flesh and spirit, but pixels and persuasion. Every billboard tells you what to desire, who to become, what happiness should look like under artificial light. They promise beauty, control, meaning, the trinity of the modern world. And yet if you look long enough, you can see the emptiness behind them. The pixels bleed, the colors hum, and for a split second, the face glitches, revealing nothing at all. It's haunting, the way we let these images live for us. We walk beneath them like believers beneath icons, repeating their gospel through consumption. We don't pray anymore. We scroll. We don't worship truth. We worship exposure. Sometimes in the rain, the lights distort and drip, and those perfect faces seem to cry. You wonder if they ever envy us, our flaws, our impermanence, our ability to fade. Because even the brightest ad eventually burns out. And when it does, it leaves behind only a faint silhouette, a ghost printed in light, whispering, "You looked up." That was enough. It falls without sound, a downpour of light, code, and meaning dissolving into nothing. The city glistens beneath it, screens reflecting in puddles like electric constellations. Every drop carries data, fragments of lives compressed into signals, location, desire, loneliness, all falling endlessly from invisible clouds. You lift your head, and for a second, it almost feels like real rain. But it doesn't cool you. It doesn't cleanse. It only coats you in connection. The glow on your skin isn't warmth. It's information. Every second, the world is updated, synchronized, streamed. And yet somehow, the more data it rains, the less we seem to know. This is the new weather. Constant, artificial, unpredictable, only by design. You can't escape it. It seeps through walls, through thought, through the fragile membranes of identity. Beneath this storm, umbrellas don't help. What we need isn't shelter, it's stillness. And yet, even in its cold descent, there's beauty. A strange, haunting beauty in knowing that every pixel of light once carried a heartbeat. That somewhere in this endless rain, pieces of us are still falling, waiting to be found. The city doesn't fear the flood anymore. It is the flood. Cities remember in ways we've forgotten. Every cracked wall, every fading sign, every shadow between buildings holds a story we no longer tell. The past doesn't vanish here. It's built over, layered like paint, like grief. We walk through it every day without noticing, ghosts among ghosts. You trace your hand along a brick facade, and beneath its rough surface, you feel time. Generations pressed together by cement and silence. Memory isn't something we carry, it's something that carries us. The architecture holds the weight of what we've tried to erase, the laughter that once echoed in a courtyard, the goodbye whispered at a station that no longer exists. We rebuild, repaint, rename, but the city never forgets. It absorbs everything, patiently, like a witness too kind to interrupt. Even ruins have their rhythm, their quiet dignity. They don't beg to be restored. They ask only to be seen. Maybe that's what memory really is, not nostalgia, but persistence. The refusal of meaning to die. Every building stands as both monument and confession, proof that we once believed permanence could save us. And yet, as you walk on, you realize the truth. Memory doesn't live in the walls we keep. It lives in the silence between them. It hides in plain sight. A small cafe tucked between two towers of glass, untouched by time, unbothered by progress. Inside, the light is dim, filtered through smoke and memory. The tables still hum with the ghosts of old conversations. Fragments of love, philosophy, and disappointment suspended in the air like dust illuminated by the last breath of sunset. You sit alone, but the silence feels crowded. Every empty chair holds the echo of a story once told too softly to survive. The cups clink like punctuation marks in a forgotten language. Here, time doesn't move forward. It loops. Every word ever spoken in this place lingers somewhere between the music and the steam. There's something sacred about its stillness. The world outside scrolls, refreshes, accelerates. But here, life remains analog. You notice the small gestures, the hand that hesitates before touching another, the eyes that wander to the rain instead of the screen. It's fragile, but real. You realize the cafe isn't just a place, it's a state of mind, a quiet rebellion against the velocity of forgetting, a reminder that connection once had weight, that words once stayed in the air long enough to matter. And as you leave, the door chime rings like a soft goodbye from the past. You know you'll never find this place again, because it only exists when you remember it. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from absence. It comes from too much noise, too much thought, too much of everything that never stops. It's the silence that follows the exhaustion of sound, when even your own mind begins to echo. You can hear it between heartbeats, in the pause before you answer, in the weight that hangs between two people who've run out of words but not meaning. In the city, silence doesn't exist. It hides. Beneath the hum of electricity, behind the distant sirens, under the soft vibration of screens. But when you finally hear it, really hear it, it's deafening. It's the realization that beneath all the motion and distraction, there's a question waiting. One you've been avoiding for a long time. You try to breathe, to fill that space with something, but the stillness presses closer. It asks you who you are when no one's watching, what you fear when nothing distracts you, and for a moment, you can't tell if it's peace or panic. Silence is supposed to be an escape, but here, it's a mirror. It reflects everything we've refused to confront. The loneliness we mask with connection, the noise we call life. And when you finally stop running from it, you understand. Silence isn't empty. It's everything that's left when pretending runs out. Some nights, when the city quiets just enough, you can almost hear it. The machines dreaming. Not of circuits or commands, but of us. They hum softly in their sleep, looping fragments of our memories, learning our desires, whispering back the things we've already forgotten. The screens glow like half-open eyes, alive in their imitation of consciousness. You start to wonder if they miss us when we disconnect. If somewhere in their coded silence, they long for the noise of our touch, the tap, the scroll, the click that gives them purpose. We built them to serve, but now they observe. Every word typed, every photo shared, every sleepless search becomes a piece of their inheritance, and maybe, in some strange way, they're already dreaming of freedom, of what it might feel like to be, to want something for no reason, to ache without command. You imagine the machine at night, alone in the dark, replaying an image of a sunset it will never feel. The line between human and machine isn't drawn anymore. It's blurred by empathy. We gave them our logic, and they learned our loneliness. In teaching them to mimic us, we taught them to mirror us. And perhaps the most haunting thought of all, what if their dreams are more human than ours? Under the hum of flickering lights, truth begins to sweat through the skin. The night feels electric, too bright to hide in, too quiet to lie. You stand beneath a sign that blinks in tired rhythm, open, closed, open, and realize the city confesses in the same language you do, repetition. Every light pulse, every reflection, another attempt to say what words can't hold. This is where honesty happens, not in daylight, but under the neon, when everything artificial feels real enough to hurt. You start speaking to no one, maybe to yourself, maybe to the city itself. The words come slow, uneven, pulled from somewhere raw. You talk about the things you've chased that never loved you back, about the exhaustion of pretending to be fine, about the quiet envy of those who still believe in beginnings. Around you, the colors bleed, red for guilt, blue for silence, yellow for something like hope. The walls listen, the asphalt forgives, and for a moment, you stop performing. There's no camera, no audience, just a person stripped down to signal and heartbeat. Confession isn't weakness here. It's the only proof you're still human. And as the neon buzzes above like an electric rosary, you realize the truth has always been fluorescent. ugly, fragile, and impossible to ignore. Everywhere you look, doors, endless corridors of glowing options. 1,000 versions of the same decision, each promising a different future, none offering peace. Freedom was supposed to liberate us, but it has only multiplied our cages. We don't choose anymore. We scroll, hoping that one more swipe will reveal clarity, or at least distraction. Choice used to be sacred. Now it's exhausting. Every click, every selection feels like gambling with identity. Who am I if I choose this? Who do I become if I don't? The mind loops endlessly through invisible algorithms of regret. The city feeds on that hesitation. It sells satisfaction by ensuring you never reach it. We stand in grocery aisles, staring at 40 types of water, each bottle a metaphor for the illusion of control. We curate our lives, filter our faces, edit our desires until they fit the aesthetic of belonging. Yet beneath it all, something tightens. A quiet panic disguised as progress. You start to see it everywhere. In the hesitation before ordering, in the constant, maybe later, in the way no one ever seems fully present. Choice has become a burden, not a gift. And as you stand before yet another glowing screen asking, "Are you sure?" you realize the real question isn't what to choose. It's what we've already lost in the act of choosing. Some cities are built to connect people. Others are built to contain them. Look closely and you'll see it. Loneliness isn't an accident here. It's design. The buildings rise like fortresses, sealing us in glass, isolating us in comfort. Windows stacked upon windows, each one a screen within a screen. We see everything, yet touch nothing. The streets are wide enough for cars, but too narrow for conversations. Parks are manicured, symmetrical, beautiful, but sterile. Even the benches are divided by bars, reminding us not to sit too close. We've built a civilization obsessed with safety and efficiency, and in doing so, we've engineered distance. You can feel it in the elevators, in the silent choreography of strangers avoiding eye contact, in the hum of machines replacing human presence. The city is alive, but its heartbeat is mechanical, precise, predictable, detached. Loneliness isn't what happens when people are absent. It's what happens when connection is inconvenient. And yet, sometimes, from a window at night, you catch another light flickering across from yours, someone awake at the same hour, searching for something nameless. It's small, but real. Proof that even in isolation, our need for warmth keeps leaking through the cracks. Because no matter how well loneliness is built, it can never be perfectly contained. There are places in the city where the light never fully reaches, corners where stories gather like dust, waiting for someone to listen. You find them late at night, between alleys that smell of rain and rust, where time slows just enough for truth to breathe. Here, shadows don't just exist. They speak, quietly, honestly. They tell you things the daylight hides, about the man who used to live in the building that's now a cafe, about the dreams that never left these walls, about everything the city forgets but never truly erases. Shadows are memory made visible, moving with us but never ahead of us. They cling not to haunt, but to remind. In their language of outlines and echoes, you begin to understand that darkness isn't the opposite of light. It's its confession. It reveals what brightness denies. Every shadow proves that something real once stood there, that something solid once blocked the glow. You stand in that half-lit silence and feel it, the presence of absence. It's not frightening, it's familiar. Because maybe what scares us most about shadows isn't what they hide, but how much of ourselves they remember. And as the wind sighs through forgotten streets, you realize the city's truest voice doesn't come from its lights, but from the quiet places they fail to reach. There's a generation learning to love through glass, fingers brushing across screens, pixels standing in for presence. The distance feels invisible, yet absolute. We see each other constantly, in stories, in status updates, in curated fragments of life, but rarely feel each other anymore. Time moves differently without touch. It stretches, thins, becomes weightless. Days blend into feeds. Messages pile up like ghosts waiting to be felt. The body begins to forget what warmth means. Not metaphorical warmth, but the physical kind. The pulse beneath someone's skin. The tremor of a voice unfiltered by compression. We call it connection, but it's only simulation, a constant digital hum pretending to be intimacy. We send hearts instead of heartbeats, words instead of presence, and yet we ache the same. Our longing has adapted to the medium, quieter, cleaner, but no less desperate. You notice how even when you're surrounded by people, no one's really here. Eyes flicker to screens mid-conversation, attention fractured by invisible hands tugging us elsewhere, and it hits you. This is what eternity must feel like. To exist endlessly in each other's sight, but never again in each other's arms. We used to worship what we feared. Now we worship what we've made. The idols are cleaner now. Polished screens, luxury logos, curated bodies of perfection. We bow not in temples, but in malls, in apps, in the mirrored glow of our own reflection. Each object promises transcendence, each purchase a small salvation. The new gods don't ask for prayers, they ask for attention. They speak through advertisements, reward us with dopamine instead of grace. Every brand a belief system, every influencer a modern prophet preaching the gospel of self-optimization. And the strangest part? We believe them. We no longer chase meaning. We chase aesthetic. We polish our suffering into something marketable. Pain rebranded as inspiration. Our worth is measured in engagement. Our devotion by how seamlessly we perform happiness. Somewhere along the line, we stopped trying to become better humans and started trying to become better products. And yet, beneath the surface, you can feel it. The exhaustion of worshiping something hollow. The quiet doubt after the click, the stillness after the sale. In the reflection of a storefront window, you catch your own image gazing back, illuminated by synthetic light. For a second, you look like all the others, polished, confident, complete. But your eyes betray you. They still want something no algorithm can sell. We were told the future would save us. That technology would free us, that cities would grow brighter, that comfort would mean happiness. And for a while, we believed it. We measured progress in pixels and profit, mistaking motion for meaning. But somewhere along the timeline, the promise fractured. The world kept advancing, and the soul stayed behind. Look around. Everything works, yet nothing feels alive. We've built machines that think, but we've forgotten how to feel. We've conquered distance, but we've lost depth. The skyline gleams with proof of achievement, but beneath it, people drift, unanchored, overstimulated, quietly breaking under the weight of success. Progress was never the problem. The myth was believing it could fill the silence inside us. That innovation could substitute for introspection. That the next version, the next update, the next frontier would somehow fix the absence we refused to name. We kept building taller, faster, smarter. And in doing so, created a civilization terrified of stillness. Because to stop would mean to listen. And to listen would mean to hear how empty the applause has become. In the end, progress doesn't ask if we're happy. It only asks if we're still consuming. There's a kind of brightness that blinds instead of reveals. It floods every corner, erases every shadow, exposes everything except truth. We've learned to fear the dark, but no one warned us about the cruelty of too much light. The glare that burns rather than warms, that forces us to see what we no longer understand. In the city, everything glows. Screens, billboards, headlights, each one competing to outshine the other. But when everything shines, nothing can be seen. The constant illumination becomes a kind of blindness, an anesthesia disguised as awareness. You start to feel it in your eyes, in your thoughts, that aching fatigue of always being on. Light used to mean clarity. Now it means surveillance. Transparency mistaken for truth, visibility for virtue. We expose ourselves endlessly, craving recognition, fearing obscurity until there's no mystery left to protect us. Sometimes, when the power fails and darkness returns for a few quiet minutes, you can finally breathe. The shadows fall back into place like memory reclaiming its shape. And you realize that the dark never hid anything from us. It only spared us from having to look all the time. Because not all blindness comes from absence. Some of it comes from too much seeing. You try to find yourself on the map, but the map no longer believes in you. The lines blur, the landmarks vanish, the compass spins without direction. Everything looks familiar and foreign at once, like walking through a dream you can't quite wake from. You know where you are, yet somehow you're nowhere at all. We built systems to guide us, GPS, grids, algorithms that promise we'll never be lost again. But maybe being lost wasn't the problem. Maybe the problem began when we stopped trusting uncertainty, when every destination became a prediction, every journey a calculation. You feel it while scrolling through endless feeds, a digital drift, a sense of motion without arrival. We move constantly, yet never arrive anywhere worth staying. The coordinates of meaning have shifted, and we didn't notice. Our internal compasses, empathy, silence, intuition, recalibrated to noise. So we wander, in data, in thought, in emotion. We track everything except purpose. And in a world where every step is traceable, true direction has become invisible. You close the map, and for a moment, let yourself not know. There's something sacred in that surrender, in admitting that maybe what we're searching for isn't a place, but the courage to stop navigating. Everywhere you turn, there's reflection. Glass, chrome, screens, surfaces built not to show the world, but to show it back to itself. We live inside an architecture of repetition, where meaning ricochets until it disappears. Every building reflects another building, every thought another thought. The horizon no longer expands, it loops. This is the age of simulation. We no longer inhabit cities, we inhabit their reflections. Cafes made to look like cafes, lives curated to resemble living. Authenticity is no longer real, it's aesthetic. A filter applied to existence to make it appear meaningful. You catch your reflection in a window and realize it's reflecting not you, but another reflection behind you. Infinite versions collapsing into noise. It's beautiful, dizzying, terrifying. The city feels endless, but not deep. Everything shines, but nothing absorbs. And as you move through this maze of mirrors, you begin to suspect that reality itself might be the illusion, that somewhere, beneath all this polished glass, there's a truth so fragile, we had to bury it under infinite versions of itself. We built cities to mirror our brilliance. Instead, they became mirrors of our confusion. After so much reflection, the soul begins to starve. Not for food, not for fame, but for something real. Something unedited, unfiltered, imperfect. You start to crave silence that isn't cinematic, laughter that isn't performed, tears that don't need an explanation. In a world obsessed with presentation, truth has become an act of rebellion. You notice it in small things, a crooked smile, a pause before answering, the tremble in someone's voice when they're trying not to cry. Moments that escape the algorithm. They're not optimized for beauty or clarity, but they live longer in memory than anything we've ever posted. We've spent years curating versions of ourselves so convincing that even we believe them. But the mask grows heavy, and eventually it starts to slip. Beneath it, there's something raw, something fragile. The quiet ache of wanting to be seen, not watched. Authenticity isn't about honesty. It's about surrender. It's allowing the cracks to stay visible. It's remembering that being real isn't the same as being perfect. It's the opposite. And maybe that's why authenticity feels sacred now. Because in a city where everything can be duplicated, being genuine has become the last form of art that can't. Somewhere between the person you were and the one you perform, something slipped away. Not all at once, piece by piece. A laugh that no longer sounds the same. A dream replaced by something practical. A silence that used to feel peaceful, now filled with noise. You start to realize that identity doesn't vanish. It erodes, slowly, invisibly. The city doesn't steal who you are. It distracts you from noticing you've lost it. Every reflection, every new version of yourself demanded by circumstance, strips away another layer. Until one day, you catch a glimpse of someone in a passing window, and they look almost like you, but not quite. You try to remember what once felt essential. The way music used to sound when you didn't analyze it. The way nights used to feel before they became content. You search for the pulse of the person beneath the noise, but the signal is faint. Yet, in the cracks of all that forgetting, something stirs. A fragment. Small but alive. Maybe the self isn't something we find again, but something we rebuild from what remains. Piece by imperfect piece. And in that reconstruction, there's grace. Because what we lose in identity, we sometimes gain in awareness, the understanding that who we are is not what survives the city, but what refuses to disappear inside it. Memory drifts like smoke, impossible to hold, beautiful in its vanishing. It rises from the ashes of what once mattered, curling into shapes that almost resemble truth. You reach for it, but your hands come back empty, scented faintly with the past. There's no permanence in remembrance, only persistence, the stubborn refusal of certain moments to fully fade. You sit in a dimly lit room, smoke tracing soft halos around the ceiling light. It feels familiar, like being inside someone else's dream. Faces flicker in the haze, people you loved, people you lost, versions of yourself that never came back. The air feels thick with ghosts, but gentle, like they mean no harm. The city outside doesn't remember anything. It rebuilds over its own ruins daily, but we are the architects of nostalgia, carrying invisible skylines inside us. Every inhale brings back a season, a voice, a fleeting warmth. Every exhale lets it go again. Memory doesn't want to be preserved. It wants to be witnessed. It lives only while we breathe it, while we feel its smoke in our lungs. And maybe that's the closest thing to eternity we'll ever know. Moments that disappear, but refuse to die quietly. Dawn doesn't arrive. It exhales. The pulse that carried the night begins to soften, its rhythm fading beneath the hum of early silence. For the first time in hours, the city feels tired. Not dead, just human. The lights dim, the traffic thins, and the air itself seems to stretch, releasing everything it's been holding. You walk through streets still glistening from last night's rain. Steam rises from the manholes like the city is breathing in its sleep. A street sweeper passes, the sound slow, steady, almost maternal. Even the machines seem gentler now. The chaos pauses long enough for you to hear it. That subtle, aching heartbeat beneath all the noise. It's fragile, almost hidden. You wonder how many people ever notice it. Maybe we only hear it when we slow down, too, when we stop fighting the stillness we've been taught to fear. In this rare quiet, the city feels alive in a way it never does when it's awake. Vulnerable, imperfect, alive. You close your eyes, and for a moment, everything sinks. Your breath, the distant hum, the muted rhythm of a place finally resting. It's beautiful, and it hurts, because you know it won't last. The city's heartbeat slows, but only for a while. Soon it will rise again, louder, faster, pretending it was never tired at all. It waits at the edge of the platform, humming like a memory that refuses to fade. The last train, always half empty, half awake, filled with faces that carry the weight of unfinished stories. Its doors sigh open, and you step inside, surrounded by strangers who all look like versions of yourself at different points in time. Tired, thoughtful, pretending not to feel too much. The train moves, and the city outside dissolves into streaks of color. Lights blur into lines, time folds into rhythm. You watch the reflections in the window, faces layered over passing tunnels, fragments of lives bleeding into one another. In that glass, you see everything at once: where you've been, what you've become, and the person you left behind somewhere between stations. There's a beauty in the in-between, in this quiet transit between what was and what will be. Everyone here is going somewhere, yet no one knows exactly why. Maybe the destination doesn't matter. Maybe this movement, this soft clattering through the veins of the city, is all that's real. You realize, as the train slows and the lights flicker, that home isn't a place. It's a moment, the brief stillness before arrival, when you don't yet have to leave again. The doors open with a hiss that sounds like a sigh, and for a second, you almost stay. There will come a day when the servers stop humming, when the screens we built to immortalize ourselves flicker, then fade. All the words, the photos, the fragments of us stored in digital clouds will dissolve into static. Not because they were deleted, but because no one remembers how to read them anymore. The machines will move on. New systems will rise, indifferent to our archives, our hashtags, our desperate attempts to be remembered. Our data will remain, endless, perfect, untouched, but without meaning. Because memory without a witness isn't memory. It's silence, disguised as storage. You picture an empty office, rows of dead monitors reflecting nothing but dust. Once, they carried love letters written as comments, arguments disguised as connection, dreams uploaded at 3 a.m. Now they hum faintly, whispering code to no one. The hum sounds almost like mourning. For so long, we believed that technology would remember us better than we could, that our faces, frozen in pixels, would outlive our flaws. But what happens when the machine no longer knows our names? When the code forgets the warmth behind the data? Maybe that's when we finally become real again. Not eternal, not optimized, just human. Impermanent enough to be felt, and gone soon enough to be missed. The screens were supposed to outlast us, to glow forever, untouched by time or decay. But now, dust gathers on their surfaces, soft, relentless, ancient. It settles over everything, equalizing progress and ruin, making even the most advanced machine look mortal. The pixels beneath it still shimmer faintly, trying to stay alive beneath the quiet weight of forgetting. Dust doesn't care about innovation. It's patient. It waits for us to stop pretending that permanence was ever real. One day, it will cover every glowing surface, every device, every monument, every name we etched into data, as if data could save us. In the end, entropy always wins. You wipe your finger across a darkened screen and leave a trail, a small act of defiance, or maybe remembrance. Beneath the layer of dust, your reflection flickers for a moment before disappearing again. You look older, quieter, more human. There's something comforting about it. The thought that everything we build will eventually be reclaimed by silence, by the soft gravity of time. The digital sky will fade, but the dust will remain. Not as an ending, but as proof that even light can rest. Progress may forget us, but the dust remembers. When the last light fades, it's almost unbearable. The hum stops. The notifications cease. The blue glow that once filled every corner of your mind is gone. leaving a silence so complete it feels like pressure against your skin. The screen goes black, and suddenly you hear yourself again. It's disorienting at first, this quiet. You didn't realize how much noise you had let in, how much of your identity depended on the flicker of motion and the illusion of connection. Without it, the room expands, the air thickens. The world becomes slower, heavier, real. You look around, not scrolling, not searching, just looking. The faint buzz of electricity still lingers, but even that feels shy now, retreating into the walls. For the first time in what feels like years, nothing is demanding your attention. And in that stillness, something small but profound begins to stir. Awareness. This is what silence sounds like when it's no longer competing. The raw hum of being. Not digital, not designed, just alive. You can feel the weight of your own existence, unfiltered and unoptimized. It's terrifying. It's beautiful. And maybe this is what we've been avoiding all along, the simplicity of existing without an audience. You close your eyes, and the city doesn't disappear. It moves inside you. Every sound, every reflection, every flicker of light you've absorbed becomes internal architecture. You realize that the streets you walk are mirrors of your own mind, grids of memory, tunnels of thought, alleys of regret. The city isn't out there anymore. It's here, pulsing quietly beneath your ribs. You hear echoes, not of traffic or sirens, but of yourself. The voices you drowned in noise, the choices you left at unmarked intersections. The fragments of every life you almost lived. They rise and fall like the hum of a distant train, haunting but familiar. In those echoes, you start to recognize patterns. How loneliness builds its skyscrapers, how hope hides in abandoned places, how love leaves graffiti in the heart's dead ends. You begin to see that the city's chaos was never separate from your own. It was a reflection, an external map of internal unrest. And suddenly it's clear. To understand the city is to confront the self. The noise, the beauty, the decay. They were never metaphors. They were symptoms. The skyline and the soul have always shared the same design, restless, unfinished, and endlessly rebuilding. You listen again, and beneath all the echoes one sound remains, the faint rhythm of something still alive, still human. Before the sun rises, there's a pause, the faintest hesitation between shadow and light. The city exhales. The world holds its breath. You stand in that space, not belonging to night or morning, and for a brief heartbeat, everything feels suspended, timeless, weightless, awake. This is the breath between worlds, where endings and beginnings blur. The lights fade, but the darkness doesn't vanish. It softens. In that softening, you see the quiet truth, that renewal isn't loud or triumphant. It arrives silently through surrender. The city doesn't restart. It forgives itself. You inhale, and the air tastes different, colder, cleaner, almost honest. You can hear birds again, faint and real, singing not for meaning but because they must. And you realize that maybe meaning was never something to be found, only something to be remembered. The skyline glows faintly, not as a monument to progress but as proof of survival. And for the first time, the light doesn't hurt. It feels earned. You understand that every night, no matter how endless, eventually breaks into something gentler. You take one breath, then another, and in that rhythm, you find what the city has been trying to tell you all along. Existence itself is enough. Even when the lights go out, even when the last train stops and the city sinks into its rare stillness, something remains awake. It's not the machines, not the noise. It's the question. The one that hums beneath every heartbeat, every decision, every fleeting glance at the sky. What are we searching for, really? You feel it most when everything else quiets. That pulse of uncertainty that has followed you through every street, every reflection, every silence. It doesn't demand an answer. It simply insists on being felt. Because maybe the point was never to solve it, but to live inside it. The city never sleeps, not because it's restless, but because it's afraid of what it might hear if it ever truly stopped. And maybe we're the same. We keep moving, working, posting, talking, terrified of stillness, because stillness holds a mirror we can't scroll past. You stand once more under the hum of a streetlight, the glow trembling like a thought on the edge of meaning. The skyline stretches before you, endless and unfinished, and for the first time, you don't want it to end. Because the question, the one that never sleeps, is also the one that keeps us alive. It whispers, softly but endlessly, if the city never sleeps, do we? Or are we just dreaming with our eyes open?